I am wearing a lab coat, meaning I must know what I'm talking about, right? With the advent of the internet, with information literally at our fingertips, it astounds me that people are still believing absolute rubbish and propaganda around psychedelic drugs. There's virtually no reason why people still need to continue propagating these myths. In today's video, I'm going to both expose to you guys just some of these crazy, ridiculous myths, and at the same time, I'm going to debunk the myths for those of you who are watching who may still believe in some of them. Oh shit, I missed a button. Gotta be completely buttoned up to be as professional looking as possible here, you know? Now it looks like the shirt is eating my head. Hello guys, I am a talking head named Adam. I should not have microdosed this morning. It's actually very fitting that I can't take myself seriously and I'm filming a video about psychedelic myths that are absolute rubbish and ridiculous that even I myself used to believe when I was younger. So enough fluff, let's just get right into this video. Let's dive in head first into these ridiculously crazy psychedelic myths that many of you guys still believe. LSD stays in your spinal fluid forever. This still popular myth suggests that after just one LSD trip, the molecule will embed itself in your spinal fluid and it'll just kind of hang out there and chill, just waiting for the unsuspecting moment when it will release itself and cause you to have a full-on psychedelic experience. A lot of people actually believe that this spinal fluid LSD is the reason for flashbacks. They actually believe that LSD flashbacks are caused by little bits of LSD leaking out of your spinal column, making you trip at any unsuspecting moment. Now, this myth is very easy to debunk. LSD has a half-life of approximately 2.5 to 5 hours. In fact, within a few days, virtually all traces of LSD are eliminated out of your system. Not to mention that the active dose of LSD on its own is measured in micrograms. I mean, LSD isn't fucking herpes. Herpes stays with you for life, right? LSD is a molecule, it's not a virus. So I have no idea who came up with the idea that LSD molecules were just gonna, like, you know, hang out and just chill in your spinal fluid, just waiting to jump out at any time. That sounds ridiculous. It literally sounds like people were comparing LSD flashbacks to herpes. You will experience intense acid flashbacks years after just one acid trip. This myth is true for both psilocybin mushrooms and LSD. In fact, this myth rings true for virtually all psychedelics. True in the sense that it's a propagated myth, not true in the sense that there's any validity to the claims. Flashbacks aren't real, they simply put don't exist. When people are experiencing continuous ill effects after an intense psychedelic experience, what has actually happened to them is they have acquired PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning that it was such a frightening and intensely challenging experience for them that they probably need therapy now just to work their way through what happened to them. And some users can mistake these moments of like a PTSD type episode where you're just lost in pure terror and anxiety as an LSD flashback, when in fact they're nothing alike. You don't just all of a sudden randomly get visuals that just start appearing out of nowhere and, you know, the world doesn't start melting on you years to come. Furthermore, what people also misdiagnose as flashbacks is sometimes after an intense psychedelic experience, which I've talked about before, other lesser substances like, say, cannabis that aren't known to be as psychedelic can all of a sudden become exponentially more psychedelic. And then when you say just, you know, smoke a few hits of weed, which usually just put you in a nice, chill, relaxed mood, all of a sudden you're having full-on acid visuals and you feel like you're mentally back in your acid trip. This is something that people commonly misdiagnose as a flashback, when in fact what has really happened is psychedelics kind of open this imaginary door in your mind. And once they blow this door wide open of what is possible and what is not possible, they can change your very perception of what reality is. That door doesn't fully shut. It can remain a crack open. And sometimes all it takes is just, you know, smoking one joint or even a few tokes to creak that door open just a little bit more and send you into full-on epiphanies and realizations that you may have had similar to your acid trip. But this is not a flashback. What this is an increased sensitivity to all psychoactive substances. Now, what is real and what can happen from time to time is something called HPPD, Hallucination Persisting Perception Disorder. What this is after a psychedelic trip, people can sometimes have lingering visuals, so much so that it can actually distract them from their everyday life. They can have tracers that last, indefinitely after the trip, or they commonly have this kind of like haze that goes over everything that they look at, making it so that their vision isn't 100% clear as it used to be. In a lot of instances, this can resolve on its own, but there's an alarmingly large amount of cases where their HPPD doesn't resolve. Of course, I'm just speaking from anecdotal evidence read online. Perhaps in some of these cases when it has resolved, they just, failed to go back online and be like, hey guys, I'm good now, which happens a lot with people posting on forums. So there really does need to be more research into the area of HPPD. However, it is an actual thing that does happen, albeit it is rare, but it can happen to some people. Just in case you guys are wondering, no, it's never happened to me. I don't have HPPD. A man took LSD and now he permanently thinks he's a glass of orange juice. A legend dating back to the 1960s was that there was a man who consumed LSD and, as I said, after his experience, for the rest of his days, for the rest of his life, he was convinced that he was nothing more than a glass of orange juice. There's another variant to this tale where the man simply believed he was an orange, in which case he was living in constant fear that his friends were going to peel him. Not only did this never actually happen, but how would he get peeled? Like, the very thought sounds, so morbid to me. Jokes aside, this was simply another one of those scare tactics that literally the members of our society would use to scare each other out of experiencing psychedelic drugs. They would say stuff like, don't take acid because you might think you're a glass of apple juice forever. If a person uses LSD more than 7 times, 7 is the lucky number, they are automatically declared as legally insane. Yeah, psychedelics do not cause the users to go permanently insane. Psychedelics can, however, cause a psychotic episode, which is common, in which case, while the person is experiencing the psychedelic trip, they will exhibit characteristics of somebody who has psychosis or who has schizophrenia even. Fortunately, these psychotic episodes end with the trip. What people fail to realize is sometimes once you've consumed a psychedelic substance, sometimes all the time, the molecule has impregnated your brain. It is in there. More importantly, with psychedelics, traditional ones, they affect the serotonin, meaning your serotonin receptors pick up the psychedelic thinking, oh, we're just getting some regular serotonin. And they're like, holy shit, that's not serotonin. I'm fucking tripping out, bro. What did I just take in? And it takes time for that molecule to, get out of your system, which in translation means it takes time for your trip to end. When the trip ends, people go back to normal. It's a very common fear that people have who consume psychedelics that, they're just one trip away from losing their mind forever. To make things a little confusing, there's a bit of validity to this. There have been cases of people who have gone insane. Now, 7 isn't the lucky number for going insane. These are cases where the individual had a predisposition to a mental illness already, meaning they had a family history of, say, schizophrenia, and in nearly all instances, they themselves were already exhibiting, symptoms of schizophrenia, and the psychedelics were just, pulling them out of the surface, and it caused their mental illness to come on sooner. I do need to state that there is zero proof, there is no evidence that suggests that psychedelics can make a sane person go bonkers unless they had a family history of it. This just doesn't happen. And as soon as there is some cases of people going insane, which, people have been using psychedelics for thousands of years. It's actually ingrained in the human psyche. A lot of people believe that we evolved alongside of these molecules, like Terence McKenna. So, granted that information, people aren't just going to all of a sudden start going bonkers. It's just not going to happen. This is a myth. If you take LSD 7 times, you're no more insane than when you started, or before you started. Unless you're me, because I think I'm that exception who just went completely bonkers after his use. This next one is another fear that people really do have, and that is you can get stuck in a trip forever. Thankfully, for my case, this isn't true. What is happening here is while you're under the influence of a psychedelic substance, you are very suggestible, sometimes over the top suggestible. And that is why your set and setting are so important during your trips, because sometimes all it takes is someone saying one wrong word, just one little negative thing that will just shoot you through a tunnel of like paranoia and fear that you are spending the rest of your trip trying to like crawl out of. And the more you try to get out of it, the deeper and deeper you fall into this pit of despair and sadness and terror. That is when people usually have this fear that, oh no, am I going to be like this forever? Am I going to be stuck in this negative headspace, you know, for the rest of my life? Of course, no one does get stuck in a trip forever because on a very physical, real, tangible level, the mechanism of action that is causing the trip is this foreign alien molecule that is in your mind. As soon as your body does what it does best and gets rid of the enemy and, you know, depletes this foreign molecule from your system, which, you know, is just seen as the drug running its course and the effects lasting just as long as they last, then you're going to return back to normal. You are not going to be stuck in the trip because on a real level, the trip will have ended. Normally, you're just experiencing this heightened sense of awareness because of the substance you took. Had you not ingested anything, you wouldn't have been so suggestible. So it's, you know, suffice to say that when the substance is out of your system, you're going to return back to your regular self. Meaning, on a very real level, it is impossible to be stuck in a trip forever. This next one is one that I not only believed, but I used to tell people when I was a kid. And that is the hallucinations, the psychedelic effects caused by magic mushrooms, also known as psilocybin mushrooms, are a result of your brain bleeding. Meaning that the only reason that you trip is because it's the mushrooms making your brain bleed. And people used to say that the trip happens when the blood like scabs over. It's the process of your brain healing itself that causes you to trip. The psychedelic effects of psilocybin mushrooms are caused via psilocybin, which converts into psilocin, being, you know, misinterpreted as serotonin. So serotonin is a natural neurotransmitter which is responsible for your happiness, your mood, your appetite, as well as other things. And so these transporters say, oh look, this is serotonin, and they gobble it up. Meaning the reason for the trip is thanks to neurotransmitters. You're not tripping because your brain is bleeding. In fact, psilocybin mushrooms are so safe on a physical level, no one has ever died as a result of consuming them. Same for LSD. No one's ever had an LSD overdose which resulted in death. In fact, it is estimated you would have to eat up to 2,000 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms to come close to overdosing, which would not be humanly possible because you'd be fucking throwing them up before you got to that level. This next myth is actually true, but it's not true for the fundamental reasons that you may be thinking. LSD is extremely dangerous for both you and society. Now, just a glance at this drug chart will show you that alcohol is actually far more dangerous for both you and society. In the United States alone, 6 people die every day as a result of an alcohol overdose. If you look at this chart, psilocybin mushrooms and LSD are quite literally at the bottom of it. The reason why LSD and psilocybin mushrooms and DMT and all the traditional psychedelics and even non-traditional psychedelics are dangerous for society is because psychedelics have the unique ability to wake you up. Yeah, I did this little goofy hand thing right there. They can show you just what is wrong with our society. They can teach us to be more loving, caring, and just genuinely real human beings. They can show you what true wealth is, and true wealth isn't monetary gain. True wealth comes in the form of the connections and bonds you make with other people. True wealth is having a life full of love. They can help us realize that we are all ultimately experiencing the same consciousness as one another, and as such, we are all very much so connected to each other. Once you feel a genuine connection to your fellow human being, it makes it a lot more difficult to just like jump right back into the system that is designed based on being competitive and masochistic qualities. These types of realizations could be used to disassemble a society which runs on insane, hateful, and destructive regulations. So yeah, don't take LSD or psilocybin mushrooms or any psychedelic for that matter. You might become a more loving human as a result of your trip. And you may realize that we the people actually have all the power. We have the ability to live in a more unified, a more loving, a more caring, and, you know, just beautiful and safe world. And yeah, this sounds extremely dangerous for the current society that we find ourselves all trapped in. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy my video, be sure to hit that like button. And now I can finally take off this button because I am freaking suffocating. Oh, that's better. Now, there's a lot of myths that I didn't cover in this video. I kind of wanted to keep it as short as possible. Another common myth that I've heard, particularly when I lived in New Zealand, was this girl was trying to convince me that if you take LSD, you will go permanently deaf, or you have a high chance of going deaf. I have no idea who told her that or why she believed it, but this is a perfect case of people literally just believing what their fellow human tells them without doing any research. It really blows my mind that people still believe gossipy bullshit like this without doing a simple Google search. Hey, does LSD make you go deaf forever? They would find no results. Another French girl once told me that her sister believed that people who consumed LSD would go crazy and eat the stomachs of other humans. You know, not the eyes, not the ears, not their hearts, but particularly they would go for the stomach. Again, absolutely fucking ridiculous. But that's the reality of this situation. We live in a society that is very much so still littered with these old myths that propagated. It's old propaganda from the 60s and 70s. This is shit that their parents are still, passing down to their kids, and it's still talked about in schools. And one of my, biggest missions with this channel is just to set the record straight and to explain to people what these substances are and what they aren't using an objective viewpoint. So if you have anyone in your family, friends or acquaintances who are still believing in some of this ridiculous bullshit, please share this video with them. It might help to just open their eyes a little bit to the true nature of what psychedelics are. It's a really funny quote that I once read that rings very true. Psychedelics have the unique ability to cause those who don't consume them to have psychotic episodes, which rings true for all of these people who are insanely and psychotically pushing and grasping hold to these myths that have no real, truth or no validity in this world. Anyway, if you guys did enjoy this video, then please subscribe to my channel. I post weekly psychedelic-related content. A huge shout out and a huge thank you to everyone who is currently supporting me on Patreon. I've mentioned before that I don't make much via YouTube advertising just because advertisers don't like my type of content, meaning I pretty much rely solely on your Patreon donations to keep this channel afloat. And I'm not saying this by any means to say I need more. I currently have the most generous and incredibly kind patrons in, I think, all of YouTube. I value you guys so much, and it's thanks to your support that I'm able to keep going with this channel. And yeah, just thank you guys. I love all of you. A extra big thank you to everyone in this annotation box right here, which unfortunately you can only see on a computer screen. If you guys want to learn more about what Patreon is, you can follow the link here and check it out for yourself. Till next time, stay safe everyone, always test your substances, and yeah, I will see you guys later. Take care, guys.